Welcome back. It's Dr. A, Associate Professor of Economics at Northern Kentucky University. Thank you all for following this financial literacy series. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. And always, like and share this work with others that might benefit from learning the financial foundations of financial literacy. At the Northern Kentucky University Center for Economic Education, Brooklyn Stevens, a senior economics student, and I are currently working on a project about financial anxiety. And according to our research, roughly 32% of people report feeling like their finances control their life. And another 54% report that thinking about their money and their finances makes them feel anxious. The reality is that our finances impact our overall well-being. Living paycheck to paycheck creates a lot of stress. I've been there, and I know firsthand how stressful it can be. Not knowing how you will pay your bills if something goes wrong, either because you can't work or there's an unexpected bill that pops up. Life happens, and the unexpected will happen. There is one thing that I did that helped me break away from this month-to-month stress of paying bills and towards living a better life. My relationship with money since then has been so much better. So let's talk about the change that I made. The one thing that I highly recommend is to start an emergency fund. In my book of financial steps, developing an emergency fund is the second step after creating a budget and tracking your spending. To start towards your financial freedom, you have to break away from that monthly cycle or the rat race, and you need to develop an emergency cushion. Something that keeps you afloat if unexpected things happen, and we know, as we said, unexpected things will happen. They happen all the time, and that is just life. So, what is an emergency fund? An emergency fund is a liquid savings account that you can tap into in the case of an emergency. There are a couple of things in this definition to keep in mind. First, it needs to be liquid, and liquid means accessible. That means you don't really care much about the rate of return on this account. Your simple goal is to have it accessible to use. While you want to access the fund, you also want to create some separate account so that it's not mixed with your daily spending account. The other thing in the definition of an emergency fund is to keep in mind is that the term emergency, it is the last resort. It is spending that has to happen or otherwise would jeopardize your financial well-being. Examples of this emergency are broken down cars that, if not fixed, can actually jeopardize your ability to get to work. Medical bills, unexpected home repairs, or job loss are just some examples that I can think of. Just be careful not to call something an emergency when it can be deferred to the next month or the month after that. What we call emergency spending can be subjective at times, and it can be easy for us to justify unnecessary spending by calling it an emergency. So what are the benefits of having an emergency fund? The goal of an emergency fund is to build a cushion to stop you from dipping into debt or credit card markets that have higher interest rates. When the unexpected in life happens, you need something to fall back on. The cushion also helps you break away from the paycheck to paycheck lifestyle, allowing yourself to have some space. It helps you to start thinking more clearly about the money and your financial situation. I talked about this actually in a previous episode about the economics of scarcity and how that stress of thinking about money can actually impact your decision making around finances, creating a situation where you're not making the best financial decisions. So make sure to build that financial cushion. The next question is how much to set aside. This is a great question. How much to set aside will vary. The experts and common consensus is that you should set aside 3 to 6 months of monthly expenses. I think a minimum of 3 months is acceptable, but if you have a specialized job that requires longer than 6 months to replace, you might want to increase your emergency fund savings to more than 6 months. In the case of job loss, the last thing you want is to have to take any job just so you can pay bills. Remember, searching for a job is a full-time job in itself, but that's a different video that I'll get to some other day. If 3 months of expenses seems like a lot to get started, and it is, then shoot to get started with $1,000. This should be your first financial priority. It will help you feel more at ease. and keep you away from credit card debt. The next question we want to ask is where to save the money. Let us talk about where to save that money. I said you want it to be liquid, accessible, but not too accessible. Talk to your current bank. That would be the first place I would go. If you currently have a checking account, they could set up a similar account adjacent to it. So you want an account that is separate, but that you can transfer to and from your checking account. Since you will not have many transactions on this account, you can actually get a money market or a savings account, and that might have limits on the number of transactions, but provides you a slightly higher interest rates. I know, interest rates today are pretty low, but might as well make a couple of dollars on your emergency fund when interest rates go up. Once again, the return is not the goal with the emergency fund. Having it accessible but separate from your daily spending is the goal. If you made it this far, drop a comment and tell me your thoughts on emergency funds. Do you have one? What's the hardest thing about getting one started? Remember, track your spending, stick to your budget, and start building your emergency fund. The start of the pathway to financial success starts with making you feel at ease. So reduce your financial anxiety by developing an emergency fund. See you next week.